Hey, spoiler alert, didn't you hear me? Keep it to yourself.
Life can have you stressed for real, whether it be taxes, mortgages, losing a bet, or really anything to do with money at all. Life can really have you looking like this over small but still tedious things. And it sucks when that happens. But when stories make you look like this, oh man, that is always a memorable moment for that show, movie, or whatever got you like this. See, when stories make you feel some type of way, it's a very special thing. The writer or author clearly did a fantastic job getting you to care about the characters and their story, making you feel for what they have to go through. And when they make you feel like this, it's always a wonderful moment to see and look back on. Moments making you look like this are like the moment on a roller coaster where you feel like something bad will happen, but when the pent-up fear is released in a shock of fun emotions, you're ecstatic and can't help but laugh because although you knew on some level that the moment of shock would come, it still seemed to come out of left field. I don't know if that roller coaster was the best thing to use as an example, but I think I still got my point across. What's that? I didn't? Well then let's look at some examples of what I'm talking about to clear the air. First of all, let me make this clear. When I say this reaction, I don't mean the moments that leave you in awe or make you feel like the character feels in that moment. I mean the moments that leave your jaw on the floor and your eyes wide open because it feels like the story just slapped you in the face with something that feels like it came out of left field, even if it didn't. And I added the even if it didn't part because of the example I'm about to give. Vinland Saga is a story of a boy wanting to avenge his father by killing the man who led the attack to assassinate him. But when the author realizes you can't exactly write an incredible and compelling story with that premise alone, he starts to really use the man meant to be killed by Thorfinn, Askeladd. So the moment I'm talking about is the season finale of season 1. Really? Man. A lot happened in just that one episode. And to get there, we need to talk about the king and Askeladd. Starting with Askeladd, he finds himself babysitting a prince whom the king wants to die on the battlefield so he can silently give his brother the crown instead, as the prince we follow, Prince Canute, is seen as too timid and beta to be given the crown. Later, after a talk about love, God, and religion, Canute becomes the prince his father wants him to be, though the king still wants to give the crown to the other prince even after seeing this. So in an attempt to overthrow the king and control the will of the crown himself, Canute works closely with Askeladd and his small, cabinet, I guess, to perform a coup d'etat of sorts. Now, most of the season was building up to this overthrowing of the king, and the last 2 episodes especially put emphasis on Askeladd being the one to do it. So when Askeladd is seen kneeling before the king at the end of episode 24 while being mocked as his plans are ruined from being told to attack his homeland, we know it's about to go down in the finale. And I might be in the minority on this, but I genuinely didn't think he would do this. This actually caught me off guard so much I had to stand looking like this because I was literally saying out loud to myself, oh shit! He actually just did that? I knew he was angry and wanted to protect who he thought should be king, but dang! It was so sudden, it was so brutal, and it was through the king! Nah, bro, to top this off, he just started roasting the old bastard before he decapitated him, finally mentioning the elephant in the room of this dude being so butt ugly. At the same time, it was all understandable considering the position he was in. I mean, Askeladd, of course. So yeah, that's building up to something that's still sudden enough to make you go. So that was an example of something that makes you go in a good way. Now to look at something that makes you go in a bad way. Code Geass is a great show about corruption, manipulation, chess, and other stuff I can't remember. On my now outdated anime list, you'll see I put it in A tier, and I still stand by that. It has its ups and downs, but one moment that I will never forget is when Lelouch accidentally gave Euphemia the order to kill all Japanese. Now before I go into all this, I feel the need to remind you that Lelouch is regarded as one of the smartest anime characters ever. Dude, even rewatching that scene is just as painful as the first time, cause look at him! He wasn't even looking at her for most of that paragraph. Then he just happened to look at her when he was given that specific ass example of what she couldn't resist. And they had just come to an agreement to keep Britannia and Japan at peace too? Hell nah, bro. That's gotta be one of the most difficult to watch moments in anime ever. Which I guess is a testament to how high the highs are rather than the other lows, considering how much fans like this anime. And then there's a finale, which while it doesn't make me go, it makes me go, because that one terrible mistake still doesn't take away from the terrific ending. Still though, that definitely was a moment that had me looking like this. even if it was because of how dumb that writing choice was. And people out here saying Lelouch is smarter than Light and L, get that out of here. The dumbest mistake you'll ever see a smart character make is that one. Lest you count picking up the Death Note to begin with to be a mistake. Anyway, let's talk about a good scene that had me looking like this again. Berserk. When I first read the manga, I stopped because the translations were terrible. Then, years later, I watched the anime because Lessons in Meme Culture made a post saying that the whole thing was on YouTube in sub and dub. So I watched it, and oh my geez, it's not what I thought it was. Now, keep in mind, the anime, which is what I'll be talking about, only covers the Golden Age arc, so anything after probably will be about what I initially thought it was. But man, the Golden Age arc hits different. It takes us to a younger Guts who, after wandering the land and getting into many fights, joins Griffith and his band of Hawks. Not long after that, the band of Hawks are appointed Knights of the Kingdom and work for a king instead of before where they were just a bunch of incredibly skilled mercenaries. Now that they're a higher status after being practically from the streets, other people in the king's cabinet grow envious of Griffith's sudden placement among the knights. Not to mention his many victories for the king, which doesn't help the jealousy problem. Griffith immediately takes extreme note of these royal knights' treachery, however, or rather one in particular who I'll be talking about, Julius. One day, while taking part in a traditional hunt for boars, Griffith is making his moves on the princess, taking the time to show her a fun side of him while his group chases the boars. Griffith, being as selfish as he is, only does this for more favor with the royal family, knowing not the assassination attempt that will occur later. Skipping to later, an arrow is shot and strikes through Griffith's armor. Lucky for him, he's protected by his Behelit and God Hand and all that. When the arrow is pulled out, everyone sees poison on the tip. However, before the culprit rides away, Griffith does see Julius looking down on him, so he knows exactly who's responsible for this. So the band of the Hawk make a big deal out of the assassination attempt, but ignore the poison. But later that night, Guts is called to Griffith's office. They chat for a bit until Griffith brings up the arrow. Apparently, the poison wasn't an ordinary poison, it was actually made from a rare being that normal people couldn't get their hands on. So with that in mind, it proves to Griffith that who he thought was looking back at him wasn't his imagination. And as payback for this treachery, he asks Guts to counter-assassinate Julius. Counter-assassinating is crazy, bro. Guts agrees, and when he goes to stalk his prey, he sees Julius sparring with a kid. The kid turns out to be his son, and at the moment he's basically taking his anger out on him while pushing the boy to become a better swordsman. Julius is filled with frustration and jealousy since because the assassination attempt failed, now people think Griffith is a hero who stopped the arrow from reaching the princess. Even later that night, Guts stands in front of a far wall waiting for Julius to notice him, I guess. But before Julius could react in time, he's taken off guard by Guts' giant slab of iron, which is used to slash him in a split second. Now, here's the moment that made me go, remember that kid from earlier? He walks in to see his father dead in Guts' face. You guys probably know where I'm going with this by now. Without hesitation, Guts sprints towards the kid with his sword pointed at him like he was jousting and runs through him like the arrow ran through Griffith's armor. Bro! This dude Guts was so in the moment that he snapped as if waking up to look at the crying child in his fading eyes and hold his hand while he questions life. He doesn't do that last part out loud, but you can see it on his disturbed face. Yo, can I get up in the chat? Like, when I saw this for the first time, I knew what was more than likely gonna happen to that kid the moment he stepped on screen, but for those few seconds he stood there, I kept telling myself that there was no way Guts would do that. But of course. And the worst part of it all is that the audience and Guts only saw this kid be borderline abused by his father. We didn't even get to see if he'd ever been happy in his entire life. Like, it's so tragic, dog. At this point, I think it goes without saying that I had this look on my face when Guts ran that kid through. Whoa, pause. You know what I meant though. Only in part due to the fact that the anime or the Golden Age arc hadn't really been that dark up to that point. Like, I know I just keep talking about it, but like, you'd had to watch the Berserk anime to know what I'm talking about because it's a whole experience. It was just so sudden and permanent into a kid. Like, that slap in the face metaphor was a really good way to describe this feeling in any of the moments in this video. Oh, and of course there's the eclipse, which don't even get me started on that, guys. Come on now. And finally, for the moment similar to the Berserk moment in all the wrong ways, we have Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a very good show, one that's so good and controlled by memes that people tend to ignore its flaws and call it a perfect show. But that's a topic for another video. For now, I'm going to talk about the worst character in the show. No, not her either. Not even him. Ah, here he is. You guys likely know where I'm already going with this, but let me cook for a moment, let me cook. I don't even know where to begin with this, so I'll start by saying this show is formulaic. In every season, we get the same loop of Walter and Jesse's relationship, some new conflict that tightens the tension of our protagonists' illegal activities, and we usually get some new character. Season 5 was a little different though, and I believe that stems from the character of Todd. Todd is a young lad who seems kind at first, but after one specific event becomes even more hateable than most everyone else in the show. Like I said before, this show is formulaic, as much so as the meth is. So whenever it breaks the repetitiveness and introduces some form of plot twist, it's almost always a very memorable moment. Moments like Gus's death, Hank finding out about Walter, and even the one scene where Walt Jr. and Saul meet each other, I think we all remember fondly because it's outside the box the plot has otherwise trapped itself in. And while, like any show, some of those moments I do have a problem with, one in particular that hit me the most involves Todd in the very episode he was introduced in. So, at this point we're a third of the way through the final season, and this show isn't a stranger to harming children. Though at the same time, they've never outright killed one, only poison. If you can't guess by now, Todd killed a kid. Shot him in cold blood, and unlike Guts, Todd didn't have to kill him. I somehow doubt that kid even knew what he was looking at entirely, but Todd still automatically thought he should die for witnessing basically nothing. I mean, the job was done at that point. They were just celebrating and all the kid did was wave. I mean, they even looked like legit workers, at least with the gloves on. And even if the kid knew what they were doing, the likelihood he would ever tell anyone is pretty low. Todd had no reason to shoot him. The fact that he did shocks me even as I'm writing this. Honestly, if memes didn't spoil the surprise, I'd probably look like this for the death of Hank as well. But that's a whole video on its own, so I'm gonna end the video with these honorable mentions. First honorable mention to Naruto when he pulled up on Pain after he destroyed the Leaf Village because my friend said he looked like this at that moment. And shout out to the boys for making me want to look like this or this for the whole show. That's all I got for this video. If you have any moments that had you like this, let me know in the comments below. Who knows, with enough support, I might make a sequel to it one day. Like and subscribe for more content from me, hit the bell if you want, have a good week, and always remember to stay ambitious.